And we are live. Good morning, good evening, everyone. You're the first episode of the podcast here where we're going to be talking about buying and investing in mobile home park and RV parks. Today we have a special guest with us with an experienced buyer here, especially in the mobile home parks. So if you're a seller, broker, wholesaler, this episode is for you, where we're gonna go in and explore exactly what it is buying and invest into mobile home parks. So let's clap it up. We'll see for Jeff Flynn. What
Appreciate
up,
it.
brother? How's it going?
Doing pretty well. Thank you. Thanks for having me on the first ever episode, one of many.
Yes, yes, sir. I hope so. So just give us quick introduction of who you are and who you were before MHP investing. And after that, let's go straight to your first deal.
Sounds good. Well, my name is Jeff Flynn. I've been investing in mobile home parks for about 4 years now. Before that, I was actually in the Navy. I was a cryptologist, so I worked for the NSA essentially. I worked under
Wow.
the NSA on behalf of the Navy, and then got pretty tired of being in the basement working night shifts. And so my last year, I knew I wanted to get out. And so I started as a broker actually. And I was working at night as a sailor. And then during the day, I was a commercial real estate broker. And it was awesome.
Wow.
Seeing the two different worlds was a ton of fun. So I did that, saved up a bunch of money from doing that, and was able to buy my first deal 2 days actually after I got out. So I checked out officially on Friday. My wife and I packed up our U-Haul, drove down to Alabama, and closed on our first park that Monday. So it was one thing right into the next, and haven't really looked back. I've enjoyed not having a boss for a long time now, so I'm definitely a huge
Oh,
fan of it.
wow. Are you located in Alabama or are you located elsewhere?
I live in Colorado now, Denver, Colorado, but I was familiar with Auburn, or Alabama in general, but more specifically Auburn. So I went to Auburn before I was in the Navy. And so when I got out, I just kind of wanted to, I knew I wasn't going to invest in Denver. That's where I was before I got out. And I wasn't really ready to invest out of state, but I was willing to move. And so I just picked an area I was very familiar with. And is part of what I realized when I was brokering, when I talked to buyers, there were tons of buyers focused on Texas, California, New York, Florida. There weren't as many people focused on Alabama. And so for me, it was kind of a way to say, okay, well, I think they might be sleeping on it. I think there's definitely some good pockets that are worth investing in. So I kind of made the jump that way.
Oh, wow. Cool. And I wanted to ask you why mobile home parks with all the niches that we have in real estate? I mean, land, single family, multifamily. Why MHP?
Well, I actually didn't start with mobile home parks. My first two, no, actually, that's not true. My first deal was a single family rental. It was just a condo that I bought with the VA loan. Um, and that was kind of my plan when I started. I was like, hey, I'm just going to buy this. And people don't know veterans can buy a property with zero money down. And my thought was, I don't have any money. I'm just, an E4 in the Navy. I'm just going to buy this and wait a year and buy another and wait a year, buy another. And I did that once and then realized very quickly all of that work to get like $200 a month in cash flow and that's if you're lucky. Like I was getting a extremely low rate and getting that much.
Mm,
I was like, this is not going to work. So I started reading about other things. I read about mobile home parks and it sounded cool. It also sounded way too crazy. I was like, because I read Glenn's book, Mobile Home Park Manifesto. Now, first off, it's a manifesto, which
okay.
is, there's not a lot of other good, famous manifestos. They're all serial killers and whatnot. So that was the first thing I read, and I was like, this seems cool. That just also seems like that seems way too involved. Let me get into maybe apartments or something. And I actually got lucky because my brother-in-law at the time was working at a firm that just sold mobile home parks. And so I
Okay.
thought, okay, well, maybe I can get into this from working there. And once I learned it, I realized, hey, it's really not that complicated. They're very simple. And really aren't as many buyers. I personally think there's probably one buyer for every 10 there are in multifamily for mobile home parks. So that was kind of my reason. And after, the first year of being a broker and just talking to mobile home park investors all day, I just kind of realized like, you know what, I have an advantage. I know this asset better than anybody else, or better than any other asset because I've been talking to investors. I don't know what it's like to really own it yet, but I know as much as I possibly could without doing that. So it's time to take the jump.
Got it. But you chose that asset class before being a broker, or exactly
Yeah, it
how it
was after
happens?
being a broker. Even while I was still a mobile home park broker, my plan was like, I'm going to buy fourplexes or something in Colorado, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to broker these deals and get a fee. And then I started looking at the numbers, and I think that's what you would find with most people who own mobile home parks. They have to be open-minded because your instinct is not to drive by a property like that and be like, "Oh, that would be great to own." It's more of like, "Wow, that looks like an eyesore," or some of them are really nice, but you still think, "Man, dealing with that many tenants would be a pain in the butt." But the reality is that when you look at the cash flow, you look at what it's really like to own them, it's very low maintenance. It's
Mm.
I don't see why you would invest in other things, to be honest with you, but it's just one of those things most people glance over and say, I don't want to get involved with that.
Got it. Got it. So walk me over your first deal. I mean, let's start from the acquisition part. How did you come across that deal? How that happened?
It was off market. To date, everything I've ever done has been off market, but this one started off that way. It was kind of simple. I basically I started with the area I knew, and I got some advice from a friend of mine at the time who said, "Hey, if you're going to look outside of where you live, just pick one area outside of where you live. Don't look at the whole country now. Just pick one pocket." And so that's what I did. I picked Auburn, Alabama, and then I kind of went an hour's drive in any direction. Said I'll try to find a park here because I knew the area and I liked visiting. It was. I still had a lot of friends there who could help. And so I started out that way, and I just went on Google Maps, found all the parks that I could just by typing in mobile home park, and then I found that there's most of them aren't even on Google Maps. Like most of the owners haven't even taken that step. So I just started manually looking for them. And the first one I found was in Tallahassee, Alabama, which is a small town,
Okay.
smaller than I would probably invest in if I didn't know it intimately. But in college, I had a friend who lived there, so I was out there all the time. I knew it very well. And basically, what there's two parks in the town, and this guy didn't have a Google Maps link. There was nothing in the phone directories about him. I basically went on Google Street View, and as I was going by the park on Street View, I could see the number for the sign, called that up, and sure enough, it was him. So I
Hmm.
spoke to him that way and just got the conversation going. And sure enough, he was getting ready to retire. He was getting kind of sick. And so we spoke for probably a month, maybe. And then we finally were able to agree on a price and go from there. So it was simple. And that's how all of the good deals I have done, pretty much all the deals I've done have pretty much been that simple. Call them up, get a conversation going, and just wait till they're ready.
This first deal it was with your entitlement from the VA loans.
No, so you can't use a VA loan for anything other than
Hmm.
your residence. I try I tried. There was actually another park in Tallahassee on Crexie, funny enough, at the time listed for 400. That was like a 10-unit park, and I thought like maybe I could argue that if I live in one of those, I would be willing. And my wife was like, "Look, we're not going to live in there for a year, so that's not happening." But also, it wouldn't have been approved anyway. Now that I've found that out, but it was one of those I had saved up enough brokering that me and a partner and another partner actually kind of pitched in. We pooled our money to go buy it together.
Oh, cool. Okay. So straight cash transaction. Easy.
It wasn't cash. We did get a bank involved, but it wasn't like a syndication. It wasn't any like a joint venture. It was just the three of us all wanting to buy parks together, and we said let's do this one. So, and one of the partners was based out of Alabama at the time. So I mean, at this point, I was still stationed in Colorado. I couldn't go out there and check it out and do all the stuff I wanted to. Whenever I wanted to, I had to get leave approved, and by this point in my career, I had burned all my leave. So he was helping us with all this on the ground stuff, and we just kind of worked it out. And I think I went there one time before we bought it. I do remember going there once before we closed, and it was pretty late in the process. But it was driving through it the first time before buying it was eye opening because you see them on Google Maps, they just you just get the impression that they're not that big, and then you go there and it's like, man, this thing doesn't end. And it was only a
Yeah.
36 lot park. I was like, wow, this is huge. So it was pretty exciting to be there the first time.
Wow. And as for the seller, you said you follow up for a month or something like that. Well, for example, when we deal with single family, there's a lot of competition. The seller's been talking to tens of investors at the same time, and do you feel like that seller was talking to other people too, or there's competition like single family or other asset class?
I didn't think anybody had ever spoken to him about it, to be quite honest with you. His sister was a realtor, and like in those kind of towns in Alabama, there's like one or two realtors that do everything. And she's like, I didn't think anybody ever want to buy this. And it was nowadays that's I mean that wasn't even that long ago, but that's totally different. Like I get cold called about it all the time, and it's not major city, major metro, city water, city. It's not any of those things, but it's just at the time it was kind of overlooked, which I was fortunate enough in my time as a broker. I knew what we were focused on brokering. Like we were trying to find 100 lots in larger areas. And after brokering for a while, I kind of realized why. It's like, am I going to go? We paid 620 grand for that park. Like, am I going to do
Wow.
all the work for that to get a 4% fee? Or am I going to try to get this $5 million deal done, which is going to be less work, honestly, because both of the parties kind of know what they're doing. And so I realized that from brokering that there was a lot of people who were not at the time getting called. They still don't get as called as much, but I don't think there's any park really out there who doesn't ever get called at this point.
Mm, got it. And what will be the problem that you guys solved for that seller? The motivation. Do you still remember that?
He was basically at a point, your typical mobile home park owner built it himself. He owned a septic company that he had just sold, and so he was done with that. And he had no systems to speak of. He would go around and pick up the rent in cash once a week. Never reported a thing, right? So we had really no due diligence that we could show a bank, which is always a hurdle, or at least a hurdle in the beginning until the banks trust you. And I think the problem for him was that he couldn't really sell it to somebody and get a premium for it at the time, right? He had let it fall into such disrepair. The roads needed to be completely redone. He was only charging 150 bucks a month per lot.
Oh,
And so,
wow.
you know, he couldn't he goes and collects the rents from these tenants each a month. Like that's so personal. He's even a $20 rent bump, he's going to hear from it from 36 people every single month. So he's just not going to raise rents and he can't afford to fix things. I mean, he personally could, but like the park budget can't. And so our problem was just like, hey, we're just going to buy it as is. We're paying you a little bit more than what it's probably really face value right now, but we knew where it could go, and that's kind of why we paid what we could for it. It's like, hey, here's enough to walk away. It's a good price for what it is. He knows, and I know that there's a lot of room to run, but he just wasn't going to do it. So that's kind of the problem that we solved for him.
Wow. Nice. So, a audience, if you're a seller and you're in the same position, just reach out. I'm gonna put the email here so I can send deals directly to Jeff. Okay, cool.
That'll work.
So, with that being said, one last question to your first deal. I'm like, what will be one lesson that still to this day came from that first deal?
It's not passive.
Oh,
That's
wow.
that's what I learned.
That's
It's
power.
not passive. The very first day, so at closing, now mind you, my wife and I literally packed up our U-Haul. This is July in Alabama. If you've ever been, I've never been to hell, but I assume it's not quite as hot as July in Alabama. Um, and so we were unloading our U-Haul. I had to go to closing during that. At closing, the park had 9 park-owned homes, which at the time I didn't know enough to like know that I was just going to sell them right away. So I was renting them right off the bat. And he handed me the keys in those, and he says, "Hey, by the way, Sylvester, his AC unit just busted." And I was like, first of all, like, okay, who's Sylvester? Which lot is that? And I had to get all this stuff, and I didn't know what to do. I was like, I guess like I'm a landlord now. I guess I got to go fix his AC unit. I drove out there with my brother-in-law. We get there. This dude is in a 1970s trailer, like very bad insulation, like scorching hot. The dude is in his late 80s in an adult diaper, just sitting on the couch with a fan blowing on him, begging us to fix the AC. And we're at a small town. Like the hardware store did not have the exact AC we needed. So then we went to Home Depot, which was an hour away. They didn't have it. So then we went to Lowe's, which was an hour away. This whole day was basically to fix this AC unit. And like right off the bat, I was like, man, I have got to get systems in place. I've got to figure out how to deal with this because the responsibility of it hit. Like as a broker, I was always used to like, hey, here's the numbers, here's how this works. But actually owning it and like somebody like there's nobody for me to call at this point. I have to get this stuff
Hmm.
done. So that was the first thing was like, man, this is not passive. Like you it can be passive, but you've got to really know what you're doing and get your systems going beforehand.
Wow, that's powerful. So with that being said, right now you do have experience. You own how many lots do you own right now?
I don't know the lots off the top of my head, but it's 11 parks.
Oh, that's cool. Wow, 11 parts. So they're all value add, or also you go with just turnkey, come in, just maybe put management place. What what do you go for?
They're all value add. I think life's too short and I'm too poor to be able to buy stabilized stuff. Like there's got to be some upside in it. Otherwise, it's like I'll just buy a bond or something. I don't know. So everything I've done has been pretty heavy value add. I've done some parks that I regret buying. Like they were so rough that I'm like, I should not have touched that. It's just a lost cause. And there's only one that I think is really like that. And then there's another one that at the time, I thought like, man, I'm really overpaying for this. Like this is more per lot than any other thing I've bought. So it's probably the most stabilized property that I bought. Hands down, the best investment I've made. Like if I took all the cash on cash returns and all the returns I thought I was going to get when I bought these, it would have been second to last. It's number one by far. And so that's kind of been my lesson is if you can get something that's quality, pay up for it. Even if there's a little bit, if there's not as much upside as you're normally used to. It's tempting when you're first starting out to do like the rougher deals because they have the juiciest looking numbers. But the reality is like you're not capable yet. You don't have the systems to take on a heavy project. Like the best thing in my if I could go back, I would have tried to get a really solid property first, just so I can get the basics down of like, hey, people need notices on the 6th of the month. Like I need a process when people have maintenance problems, all this stuff. That's hard to do when everybody has problems all the time. But on a nice property, it's
Mm,
pretty easy to get it figured out.
got it. What would be with a red flag right now? Hey, this this deal are gonna just keep it. It's just too much work.
For me, if it's on Crexy or LoopNet, it's a red flag. Like it just in general. I know you. I don't know if you guys list anything, but like I just that to me is sign like people have seen it, passed on it. It's no bueno. The other thing that is a red flag to me if seller financing is just offered right off the bat. Like if you say
Hmm.
well you can get this deal. We are offering seller financing. My question is always why, and it's sometimes it's a really savvy investor who has a tax strategy. I'd say that's probably the case like 2 out of 10 times. Most of the time, it's not bankable for whatever reason. It's either the utilities are terrible, the market is god awful, or the condition of it. There's no financials to speak of, and the financials part I've kind of gotten over. Like I've been able to build out really really good pro formas for the banks I work with that they kind of understand. Like it's a really good price because the mom and pop's not doing any financials, but it's not like it. I can show them the other properties that we operate, and they can kind of get an idea for it. But those are the biggest red flags to me. Is it listed, and um, is there seller
Under
financing
financing
right off the
plans.
bat? Seller financing is awesome. Like, don't get me wrong, it's awesome when you get it. But like, people have never met me, and they're just going to offer it. Like, that's crazy. You know what? Why? Why are you willing to take 20% of your property's price instead of all of it? Like that. That's it's kind of an alarm to me. Not always. I found that there are some, like I said, some people are savvy and they don't want to pay all the tax. They want to do an installment sale, but a lot of times it's something to make me pretty cautious.
That's pretty interesting because I'm thinking when we do a property, the owner financing is available. I get tens of calls. I have like people. they're calling me, hey, other finance available, available. Let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. So I was like, that's the first time that I heard that that might be some kind of red flag. That interesting. And as for red flag from a value add type of work, let's say some type of capex that you say, no, that's too much work. No, I'm gonna avoid that, or maybe I'm gonna pass on it. I don't want to do this type of capex. What would be the type of capex that you it's just a deal breaker, too much work?
I mean, there's really not too much. If you know it going into it, you can always budget for it, even if it's a massive, massive repair. I just did a CapEx project last month that was more than our down payment, but we knew it going into it. It was all part of the plan. I think one of the probably only CapEx projects that would scare me enough to walk away is an infill scenario where I'm not confident it will fill up. Um,
Mm,
Anytime I like, sometimes I'll see where a park is half full, and it really is that classic adage of like, is it half full or half empty? Because affordable housing is in such demand right now. Why aren't people living here? Is it because, and a lot of times it is the case that the owner is just so bad, like they don't have a phone, they don't want to deal with new people, so they just keep it the way it is. That's awesome because you can get in there and you can fill it up and whatever. A lot of times it's because nobody lives in that town or the population's declining and you can't keep it full. Like, and that to me is a project where you have to say like, hey, it doesn't really matter what I can do or how good I am at it. If the demand is not there, there's nothing you can do about that. And so that's one of the ones that would concern me. But outside of doing the projects, I mean, I'm not the one paving, I'm not the one installing the septic tanks. Like it's really just planning. And it's simple. You just have to do your homework on the front end and know what things are going to cost and have a range and have a plan if they go over budget. And there's really not too much there that's scary in terms of capex, I feel like.
mm, got it, got it. And what type of owners do you come across? Mom and pop, savvy investor, what type of stuff you deal with the most? You feel
I
like,
would say 9 of the 11 were mom and pops. Like, so they only owned that park. There's unique challenges to working with them, but I find it to be so much fun. And I'd say if people ask me why I invest mostly in Alabama and some of the southern states, it's because the people are so fun to work with, which I don't think I would get any of the deals I've gotten if it was New Jersey or New York, and not to hate on anybody from the states, but it's just a different culture. Like I walk around and the mom and pops will, it just would blow my mind. Like originally I was like, well, how, like these people are charging 150, the market's 450. Like, do they just not read the newspaper? Like what's going on? And they would walk around my property and just tell me like, oh yeah, we could probably get this rent to 450. We should probably do this. And they know it all. They're just content. They have no interest in doing all the work to do it. So those are the kind of deals I loved doing because it was very easy because they had done so little. It was very easy to do the bare minimum, like fix things up, charge a market rate, you're good. You can add tons of value. That is getting harder and harder to find. And what I've done more of recently is operators where they get into it and they're like, hey, I don't really want to operate this. Like, I kind of want out. And I mean, people tend to like hate on mom and pops. A lot of mom and pops do a really, really good job. And there's a lot of operators who do a worse job than them. And so I think that's something I used to think like, well, if these all get bought up, there's nothing more for me to buy. And now I'm realizing like there's a lot of opportunity in people thinking this is easy, getting into it and realizing like, hey, I want to get out. And those people are very savvy. It's cool you can strike really, really good deals with them that are win-wins for both parties, and solve their problem too. So those are kind of the two buckets I'm looking for.
got it. With that being said, okay, you're saying that you come across a lot of mom and pops. Is it part of his marketing strategies for acquisition, you targeting mom and pops owner, or you just go into your market and just market to everyone and see who's open to sell?
It's a good question. I think a lot of times I kind of just know off the top of my, I mean, when I brokered, I made so many calls and I knew so many of the people in the industry. Not even if I knew them, I just somebody in the office would say, "Oh yeah, there's doing that." And I've been fortunate enough to know that back end knowledge and just know like, hey, so and so owns this. they're good at it. Like they're anything I would have done to the property, they've done to the property. There's no value add there. Like there's nothing I can do and buy. Like they're going to sell this to a large group at the end of the day. And I think I've been able to just focus my efforts on those parks where I know I can get in there and I can be the first person to buy it. Because it kind of goes mom and pops, mid-level guys like me, and then it goes to larger groups and then eventually REITs. And I've been able to not waste too much time on big ones. I've never bought a big park because of that. So you can kind of critique that and say, well, you're never going to get a 100 lot park if you don't call them. I get that, but I think at the end of the day, I'm realistic enough to know like that's going to sell to some group for stupid money. Like I'm not going to win that. Let me focus my efforts on these other ones. I have a very high likelihood of winning.
Got it. So your strategy, you're buying to keep it, obviously. All the parts that you bought, you still have it to the till this day, right?
Yeah, I've never sold any of them so far.
Yeah, I think you don't you won't sell. I mean, soon, I guess. Or maybe there's one that maybe it's just a headache. Let me see if you can exit. Do you have any part that you're thinking, hey, this is too much, too much of a headache? Let me just exit from this thing. Or you were saying in the beginning that you have some part with partnership with partners, other with no partners. So maybe there's some
There's
type
some
of
that I would
situation.
sell. There's some that I would certainly sell. And I think it just kind of comes down to the fact that I look at it and say, am I going to spend all the time and effort? Like when I bought, like some of those were the first two or three. And when you have two or three properties, you can put a lot of time and effort into them and they can do way better than a property when you have 10. But I got to a certain point where, some of the deals weren't done, all the stuff I wanted to do to them. Like I wanted to fix up the homes, I wanted to fill in lots, I wanted to add lots, and I just got too busy buying more. And eventually I was like, you know what? My time at this point is better off not squeezing every drop out of each and every deal, but just buying more in general. And so there's some that are, especially when they're smaller. Like I have one that's a 26 lot park that I would sell tomorrow if somebody offered me what I need. And it just comes down to the fact that like when I bought it, I lived 5 minutes away. And so I ran it
Mhm.
accordingly. And it worked really well. And I don't think you have to live next to it because I have a really good manager now, but you do have to put a lot of time into that one because it does have a lot of park owned homes. And it does really well when you pay attention to it. When you don't, it doesn't do well at all. And when I was first buying it, it was awesome. And now it's like I got so many other things going on. It's hard for me to put the time and effort into that park when, it can do 10% better if I pay a bunch of attention to it. But do I want to do that or do I want to go out and find another three, four deals this year? Like what's going to make me more for me? It's that. And so I think there's a lot of people out there who could probably get their first deal from somebody like me. And part of it should raise alarms. Like if somebody has a lot of property and they're willing to sell one, I would ask why, that's what somebody would ask me. And I would tell them like, that one is too much of my time. Like that's a good first, second park for people. When you have 10 of them, it starts to get too much, and maybe for other people, they can stabilize it in that amount of time and not have to deal with that. I don't know, but that's kind of, there are some I would sell, but I don't go into them with the plan to sell it. I always want to try to keep it if I can.
Yeah, makes sense. Nice. And as for acquisition, I know that you have some kind of operation in-house with VA with your acquisition guy, but do you guys also buy from wholesaler, brokers, or all the connection that you have in the and you still have in the industry? How does it how does it look like for you?
Funny enough, so I worked at a brokerage, so most of my friends were brokers. My brother-in-law is a broker. I've never got one from any of them ever. So I don't know why. I ask. It's not like I don't ask them, but they just don't have them. Um, I love the idea at this point. Like I kind of only want to do deals through brokers and wholesalers because it's such a time constraint. I don't think people have any real clue how hard it is to actually get a deal done. Like it doesn't take much time to call people, but you're not going to call them the first time and get it done. It's going to be lots of follow up, and that's very hard to do. Like as you scale, you can't keep your eye on the ball in all sorts of different facets. So I want to do more with brokers and wholesalers. Candidly, I don't think they find as good a deals as when you can go direct to the seller. I think as soon as you get somebody else in the middle, it's going to go up in price a pretty good amount. It's just part of the way it is. Like you're going to pay more for doing a lot less of the work. And I think a lot of the sellers out there, at least the mom and pops I've bought from, they don't want to use a broker if they can avoid it. Even if you sat down and explained to them, hey, you're going to net more if this person does the work to market it and find a best buyer. Like they know that. It's not that they don't know it, they just don't care. Like they would much rather sell to somebody direct and not have to go back and forth and pay a fee, at least from the ones I've dealt with. Which is why I think they weren't sold because a broker like me would get that vibe very quickly from talking to them and not waste the time for on a smaller park what amounts to a very small commission. Whereas when you buy it and you can double, triple the value, it's definitely worth it. And so I think it's a great thing to work with wholesalers and brokers, but I would tell anybody getting started, you can't rely on it because they're such simple assets. The people, once they kind of have a system figured out, a buyer can buy pretty much anywhere. And so wholesalers and brokers, if they're established, they're going to have their trusted group of buyers. If you get anything from them, it's not going to be the pick of the litter. It's going to be the deals they already showed to all their other experienced buyers and they passed on it. Not always, but typically that's kind of how it flows. And, that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, you're right. Definitely. But definitely, if you guys are listening to this, your broker or seller, you have a solid buyer here that is looking for deals from you. And where exactly are you buying? I know that all you have a portfolio there in Alabama, and you're also buying in other states, or you're still in Alabama. How does it look like for you?
So right now I own in Alabama, Mississippi, and Kentucky. I would look at anything in those states. I love those states. I'm very much a cash flow buyer. I think if I'm going to buy something for the hope that it appreciates, I'd rather buy something cool like a beach house or something. So for me, I want to buy in a state that cash flows really, really well. And I think the only other state that I'm really trying to get aggressive in is North Carolina. And no other fact than my family lives there. And so I'm out there all the time. And that's a huge advantage when you get these mom and pops who you want to have somebody go out and meet them, but you don't have profit and loss statements to show them. You don't have a rent roll yet. You just like those kind of deals where you just have to get out there and maybe you waste a day driving out and seeing them, but it's at least worth the try. Those are the kind of the areas that I focus on.
Got it. Got it. We've been running our wholesale operation, and sometimes we want to get the buyer into the deal before we have a contract. So the struggle for us has always been find trusted buyers, that you can get into the deal before you get the contract, before everything. Hey, I'm talking to the seller. Hey Jeff, I'm talking to the seller. He's in your neighborhood. Let me just let's just work together on this thing, and before before everything is set in stone, and before I send it out to hundreds of buyers that we have in our buyer list, I just know that Jeff is by near. For example, let's say I have in Alabama or Mississippi. Uh, let's get it done before that, so you can have the deal that you want. You can have access directly also to the seller, so it's easier for everyone. So this, as wholesaler, has been the biggest struggle. I mean, biggest struggle, the biggest challenge, and this is our goal into 2026. Have a group of buyers that we can just go in before lock it up, pretty much, so that you have a good idea what is happening. This guy wants to sell, and as you were saying before, there's some deals that we've been going from 2023, 2022. So it's been a long follow-up game. So yeah, we've been going like, should we market it before? Should we market it after? Because you know, you get put it out there and you lose the deal, and you've been working the lead from 2022, 2021, and
Yeah.
that'll be
Yeah. It's a chicken and egg game because I always found this when I was brokering that sellers are very reluctant to sign anything with you. And I don't think most people understand that they have the impression that if a broker or wholesaler is bringing you a deal, that they have something signed. And it's like, 99% of the time, they don't. So like if they're sending you something, it's because they trust you. And so it's very, very hard for new clients to get in with new brokers because they already have a trusted group of people. And it's one of those things you find the right buyer. It's not like realtors selling a house. You get somebody in a new house. Well, they don't need a new house ever until they move. Whereas a mobile home park buyer, they'll buy one, two, three. I mean, they'll buy as many as you can send them, really. So it's definitely one of those things when you become a trusted buyer with these brokers, or when the brokers get their trusted buyers, that's who they're going to go with. So all of their time is pretty much focused on finding the sellers because that's a lot harder. It's 100 times harder to find a seller than it is a buyer. You can throw a rock and hit somebody wanting to buy one of these. It's really just who is willing to sell for a price that somebody can make work.
Got him. Let's go back real quick because you pick up my interest in the seller financing portion because obviously it's one of our strategy right now when we talk to sellers straight up we ask, hey, are you open to seller finance? So what would be the thing that you're looking for in a seller finance transaction? If you in your portfolio you already had some of those, I guess maybe yes, probably you do. But what are the type of things that you're looking on a seller financing
I
type of
would still treat
transaction?
the deal as if I'm going to go to a bank and do it. And I think that's important because eventually somebody else is going to happen. Somebody else is going to have to do that. I think I see that a lot when a park has a lagoon. That's an example that comes to my mind where most banks are not going to want to touch that. Most buyers are not going to want to touch that. And what you find is the people who do buy those are typically not super seasoned mobile home park investors. And they don't necessarily understand that, like, you may not have a problem with that ever, but it has a stigma and there's a smaller buyer pool for it. So you have to adjust your price a lot. Now, when it's seller financed, you don't have to go to a bank. You don't have to get an appraisal. That may never come up. You may never encounter that as a problem. If you were to finance it with the bank, you would immediately find that as a problem when you go and talk to all these banks. They're like, no, 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 no. And so that's what I would tell anybody won't get in a deal that's seller financed. Take it to a loan broker and just say, like, do you know anybody who would do this project? And if the answer is no, that should concern you. Because even if you can buy it and on paper get good numbers, you have to say, like, if you can't ever sell that for anywhere near what you're asking or what you're thinking you can sell for, the numbers on your paper are just that. They're just numbers on a paper. Um, the other thing to me is to figure out when self financing is offered because it is awesome. It's trying to figure out what they really want. A lot of sellers I've noticed they just want a higher price than it's really worth, and they're willing to sell or finance it to get that. Now there's limits to that. I think you can kind of look at the difference between, okay, they're going to finance it to me at this percentage rate, at this amortization. A bank is going to do this, and they're all kind of the same what the banks will do. So you can put some value on that difference in what the payment is. But I mean, you see things listed for like twice what they should be because they're self
Yeah,
financing. It's like that's a problem. But you don't know it because, and it happens very commonly with parks that are all park owned homes because any experienced buyer is going to know if, like, okay, if you take that to the bank, they're going to struggle with it because park owned homes are it's getting easier, but it's historically been pretty difficult to finance and they're not worth the cap rate you think they are. Whereas if it's seller financed, if you can come up with the money, it's not going to get an appraisal. And if it was appraised, it doesn't really matter. And there's nobody there telling you, like, hey, you're paying too much for that, right? That never comes up. And so I think that's kind of one of the things that I've noticed about it. But it's not, again, it's not to say that every deal that has seller financing is bad or the ones that advertise it are bad. There's a lot of very logical reasons people do want to seller finance it. And I think it can be great. And I just think it's one of those things you have to just go into it and try to understand their motivations because they may not be they may not be your best friend. They may want to get as much money as they can and they may want you to get overpay. Um, that's exactly what happened in the town where I bought Tallahassee. This guy bought a 10 lot park for like 400 something grand. Now our 36
well,
was 600 grand, but it was seller financed. He had the 80K down or whatever she needed, the seller needed, and he paid her. And it wasn't my place to say it, but if you ever asked me directly, I'd be like, dude, get it appraised because it's not that, But that wasn't my place. But I was never asked that. But That's what I mean. Like when you sell financing, essentially they're taking out of the process of you having to go to speak to a bank or an appraiser. And so that basically that can be a good thing in cases where you're getting a good deal and you know you're getting a good deal, but sometimes they can bite you.
Got him. Got him. And let's talk real quick about partnership. You said you bought I guess you have some park with partners, some of them without partners. So what will be the challenge that you encounter with working with partners and
I think
working without partners?
yeah, that's a good that's what kind of bit me in the beginning is our partnership was not that great. Great friends, like the two of us get along great still to this day. Loved it. But we were all the same person. We're all disorganized, energetic entrepreneurs. None of us are going to sit down and do the books once a week like we should. And that has been a problem with us ever since we started it because we are always like none of us complement each other. We all have the exact same skill set and the exact same weaknesses. So that I would say is the first problem. But that's kind of a common thing in partnerships because you hang out with and you get along with people similar to you. But a partnership should really be people who are different than you, I think. Like if I were to partner with somebody, I would partner with somebody now who's more of an accountant type, very detail oriented, probably the type that would get on my nerves. And when we're underwriting and like we're doing due diligence, I'm like, you need to worry less. Like this will be fine. But that would complement it more so than, my partners who I love, who were all just foot on the gas type personalities. And that makes it tough. And the other part with partnerships is that people may want the same thing as you. They may not want it quite as bad as you. And so
Mm,
I would always take everything as a deal by deal basis. Like my desire to buy that first deal was so strong. For my partner, it was his 12th park. He didn't care as much. And so when problems came up, wasn't a big deal for him. It was a huge deal for me because it was my first park. I
yeah,
wanted to do it really well. Now I'm in the same position where I get where he was coming from. He wasn't lazy. He's just like, look, I got a lot going on. That's not a super big concern. And now I'm in the same position where somebody brings me the 12th park. That's not going to change my life. So I'm not going to be super aggressive. I'm not going to put hundreds of hours into a deal. Like I'm not going to do those kind of deals anymore. I'm just not as hungry. And so I think you have to be very aware of like, if you write down everything on a piece of paper, like, yeah, we want to buy parks, we want cash flow for this and this and this. Well, how bad? How bad do you want that? Are you willing to go out there on your weekends and do what you need to in the beginning when you can't buy, like, you don't have money for vendors yet and that kind of stuff? Is that what you're going to do? Or are you just going to say, hey, it just needs to be good by year 5 so we can refinance or sell? Let's just slow roll it. Like that matters. And I didn't necessarily understand that at the beginning. And now it's, and that's why some partners, the same partners I have, would be great on some deals, and other ones I wouldn't partner with them on. And they would say the same thing about me. It's just like there's some where you need to get in there and get super involved, and you need people who share that level of urgency.
yeah. So let's say we're running our for our wholesaler operation. Let's say we are the type of the accountant type, the underwriting type of people. I would say, oh, it's such a good deal that we want some equity on it. Would you partner up with someone that you quote unquote don't know? Oh,
It would
uh,
depend on, yes, and the question would be like, what are you depending them on them for? If somebody's brought you the deal, that is kind of done as soon as you close, right? To an extent. And that was kind of the arrangement on my first deals. Like I brought the deal, I got a certain cut for doing that, which is worth a lot, right? It's not like it's not worth nothing. But you also have to understand and take the zoom out and say, well, if you're going to own this for 10 plus years, as much work as it is to buy something, it's far more work to manage it. Even if you've got a property manager, it's a lot of continuing time. And so I think the I think it's with partnerships, I feel like it all comes down to being realistic with who's going to do what and how much. Like my first partnership, we all got along great. We still do. But there are times when some of us were pulling way more, and it switched. Like each one of us at different points was doing way more of the work. We would have been better off to structure it differently to say, like, okay, so and so's got to manage it. they need to get the property management fee. And that psychologically, like they're getting paid for that, that's fine. But when everybody's equal, it's not realistic that everybody's going to do the same work all the time. And so you really have to divvy up certain fees or, percentages for different things. And, partnerships, you just have to look at a deal by deal basis. Like if someone's going to do all the work to get the deal done and it's a syndication, like give them an acquisition fee. But if there's a refinance fee, the guy who got the deal shouldn't get that. It's the guy who did all the work to like get it there and refinance it on the back end, right? Or whoever's going to manage it should get the management fee. And, certain people should get, I think that's a really good way to go because what drives partnerships apart most of the time is people feel like they're doing more and getting less than they deserve. And the same partnership, the same people, but you just structure it differently so people are getting rewarded for what they're doing. Or if, hey, the first deal, everybody's equal. And the second deal, we realize, oh, so and so did way more of the work. We should give them more. That works out better in the long run, I feel like. And so, yes, I would partner with someone I didn't know, but just kind of depends on what capacity.
Got it. Let's talk a little bit about number. What would be the minimum NOI that you're gonna consider the minimum cash flow that this podcast to have to make it
Yeah.
quote unquote interesting for you?
That's changed over time. I would say now, like after a refinance, I got to get at least 3 grand a month. And I'm talking me personally.
Personally,
Like it's just, it's probably not in my backyard at this point because I know every owner there. It's going to be somewhere I'm going to have to visit occasionally, and it's kind of weird to say, but that's kind of it. Like it's got to be. There's a lot of work involved. If you're not going to be able to at least make that much, it's better off leaving that opportunity for somebody who wants that and is willing to do that much for a little bit less, which is still great. Like if you get 1,000 bucks a month from a property, that's awesome. Like, but it's the more and more you get, like it's almost some of them can be a distraction if you got to put all your management resources on this new deal. So for me, that's kind of the metric I look for. That's after I refinance it, can I personally get at least that much? Now that might mean on a $10 million park that I'm gonna pay a four cap for and it's going to take 7 years to boost the value. Like I may not do that, but
yeah.
a 250 lot park where I think I can triple the value and I can do a master lease and do something creative and like I'm the type to look at those very heavily. And because the best deals I've done are deals I know as a broker people would not have probably done, but it took creativity to structure it in such a way where like I had one where the seller was my only investor and they don't own any equity. So it's eventually it's all mine. Like that to me is worth it. But criteria wise, I probably would have shied away from it if I didn't look at it creatively. So for me, that's kind of the range I like staying in. But nowadays, that's pretty much like the one metric I look at. And I mean, everything else has to check out. Like you have to be able to refinance it. If you have investors in the deal, like they have to get good returns too. So that's all that stuff is kind of what bakes into it.
What are you offering to your investors as far returns?
So I can't get into that because I still raise money as 506B syndications. So I'm open to non-accredited or accredited investors. And
Okay.
most of my investors are non-accredited. Well, actually, no, that's not true. That's not true. Probably dollar wise, that's not true, but like people wise, that probably is. But what I can say is that what I look to do on a deal is buy it, refinance it, and hold forever. And what I have learned over time, the quicker you can do that, the better. So I used to be all about cash flow. Like, what's my year one cash on cash return? At the end of the day, like that does not like as soon as like the way I look at it, until you've refinanced and got your money back, you are in the hole. If you buy a deal and you get 20% first year, that's great. Well, you have $80,000 less than you started with if you invested 100 grand and you made 20 grand. To me, I'm looking at the deals, and typically what that means is in the first couple years, when you could choose to fix stuff up and speed up the process or get better returns, like I'm going to fix it up faster at this point. Like I want to get the value up quicker, refinance it, get that money, go do another one. That's kind of my philosophy at this point.
Got it. Now you maybe this question you can answer it. After your refinance, you allow some investor to stay on the deal with you
That's how
after the
I do it.
refinance.
That's how
Yeah,
I like to do it. So the whole idea being that you're not buying them out and it's just a return of their money. And half the time it's not even taxed because it's just that. It's not a sale. It's just, hey, here's your money back, but we're still going to cash flow it. That's how I like setting it up. Like I set up my deal so that until it's refinanced, I pretty much don't see anything. I mean, there's some small things I get fees for like closing it and whatnot, but for the most part, like my incentive is get it refinanced, get the value, get the money back, because then you can start the clock for like actually making profit. In my mind, I wouldn't say that was true if you were investing in stocks, but when you're investing in real estate, like so what? You bought a property for 1 million, it's worth two right now. You can't go to Walmart and spend that. Like you have, like it is tied up until you exit. And so my whole thought process is like that is when the clock starts of profit. And so for me, I'm looking to deals where the quicker I can do that, the better. And on any given deal, there's ways to do it to where you do that quicker or you postpone it and you get better cash flow in the meantime. But to me, at the end of the day, what's 8% versus 10% versus 12% versus like, okay, you get your money back in 2 years versus 5 years. Like that's what I want to be doing, that, and that's kind of what I've learned is the philosophy, like be patient in the long run. It's just about how much real estate you can acquire that can cash flow, trying to nitpick the returns and juice them up in the first 2 years just doesn't get you where you think it does in the beginning.
got it. The last couple of questions that I do have. One, um, 2026. You always have been investing in mobile home park. Are you gonna get to maybe another, maybe also in RV parks, or do you have some kind of plan for this upcoming year, 2026? Something new? I know you have already 11, 12 parks, so maybe you want to maybe either scale the operation or maybe try something new. I mean, you have the
I'm
experience.
Yeah, I'm the type of person where like I know financially the best thing to do is just keep doing the same thing over and over and over. I just can't do it. I just get too bored. I got to do something new. So I looked into RV parks pretty heavily. I think for me, the reason I'm not going to want to buy any of those is because of how operation heavy they are. Like I'm too spoiled with mobile home parks. They're so smooth and simple. Like I don't think I can get into something else that's more involved than that, or I'll be terrible. But I am looking at actually building a park this year, which is really exciting for.
Wow.
I'm just about finished my master's in real estate development, so I've taken the time to really understand. People say you can't build them. Well, why? And is there are is that outdated? Can you actually build them? And I think the answer is yes. And so that's one of the things I'm really, really excited about this year is starting to build them from scratch because it's a lot longer of a play. Like it's a 10-year horizon versus a 5-year horizon. But the flip side of that is a high quality park that you set up from the jump to be really nice and like no none of those tenants, if they're moving in, are not gonna like they're all gonna have to set up auto pay. Like I'm not gonna I don't know if I'm legally allowed to do that, but like I'm gonna find a way to make sure that's the case because that makes it so easy. Just tech savvy people from the jump know how to use all those systems. That's what I'm really, really excited for 2026 because I think if I can crack that code and build one successfully, I think the affordable housing demand is just so strong that you could just for the next 10 years, I mean, you could if you can find a place that'll let you do it, you can do as many of them as you want. That's kind of my thought. So, I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, you're right. Talking about building, a couple of days ago I talked to a buyer in Texas. He is an older gentleman. He's paralyzed, and he and his brother have been building parks from the last 20 years. I was super inspired from him. You're paralyzed. He has a stroke. He's an older gentleman, and you building from the ground ups. And I was like, wow. So no excuses. You
Yeah.
have to do no excuses. Super cool. And last question: will you walk me through your your favorite deal? What would be your favorite deal that you had? Maybe.
If you ask
Oh
me,
wow, super cool.
yeah, my favorite one. 6 months ago would have been one where I bought it and it was just a great park. The owner just lived there and didn't change the rents for like 15 years. And so I basically bought it, got everybody paying online, and we just been bumping the rents up to market rate and we've like doubled the value. But it's pristine. People pay on time every month. I don't have to send notices. Everybody loves living there. They all have point 0.4 acres. Like people have koi ponds in their front yard. That's the one I mentioned at the beginning of this. Like I paid the most for it. And at the time I was like, man, like on paper, this is like a four cap. Is this stupid? Like, but it wasn't, right? Like it's been the best because it's consistent. I would have said that one was my favorite, but recently I did one where for 4 years I followed up with the seller and
Wow.
when they sold, they invested 30% of their proceeds into the deal. So it was essentially a zero down. They weren't loaning the money. They literally invested it in my company that I formed to do it. It was a syndication. And I basically just have the right to buy them out and they don't get any of the upside. So like I could, potentially own the whole thing and not necessarily have anybody in it. And that has been my favorite so far because it's, just even if that structure didn't happen to work out as well, just the runway there has been crazy. It's in a city with so much demand. I don't even think I've had it 6 months yet. I think it's been 4.5. We've gone from 43 occupied units to where we're about to hit 52. Like, so we infilled that many. And I didn't
Wow.
sell any of them. They've just been people organically moving in at like 3.5 times the original rent that the tenants who are there are still on. Like, so it was just a process of like, as good as it's going to look on paper for like, hey, this is how long it took for us to turn this park around. It's like, well, it took 4 years to buy it. So that's kind of where I've come to with the development where I'm like, yeah, like on paper, if you compare the deals, like it's much better to buy. I would always buy rather than build. But if I build, I can start now. Whereas like a lot of these deals, as you know, like you got to wait. Like they don't
Yeah.
respond to just prices in front of them. Like it's when they're ready and you don't have any real say in that. And so to me, that's another part about it. For my business to scale, what I want to do is I look to apartments and big apartment companies don't just buy, they don't just build, they do both. When it's more expensive to buy it than build it, they build it. When it's more expensive to build it than buy it, they buy it. And that doesn't really exist in mobile home parks now, but that's kind of what I want to focus on developing.
Wow. Cool. And I lied. One more question that I came up right now. As for systems and processes, especially right now with AI, you've been talking that you have a lot of systems in place. And I'm I'm assuming also automated stuff. What are you guys automating? What are you guys still doing in place or physically? I guess you've been trying to automate everything, but I guess maybe something is not possible. But what exactly are you guys automating and what you're trying to automate it this year?
The only thing I think you can't automate is talking to the tenants, but I don't think you can automate that right now. I think I
Wow.
think I think you can in 12 to 18 months. I think everything else can be automated, um, including tours of the sites. Like I have some remote cameras and we just log in and snap a screenshot. I'm like, I know eventually that's going to be, it just takes the screenshot, puts the image through AI and see if there's trash in the yard, see if their stuff needs to get growed or mowed or whatever. Um, right now, so of my 11 parks, I personally, like my management entity manages um, five of those. So the other six, I have a third party do. For those five, we run 10,000 automations a month
Wow.
on Zapier. So it's a lot. And what I have done is I basically have, so I have a full-time VA who works for like most of those parks, managing them, from overseas. So we're fully virtual. And then there's one park where I do everything, including answer the phones from the tenants. And I just keep a note of what have I had to do twice? Like, what have I had to sit here and sit down and do two times? If that's the case, the first thing I say is like, how could I automate this if I can't, eliminate it or delegate it? And that has just over time, like over the last year, I've been able to set up awesome automations for a lot of things. So on the 6th of the month, it will create a spreadsheet, send it to the on-site person with all the PDFs drafted of who to put the notices on their door. Now, most softwares can do that. I find it too cumbersome. You still got to go and do it all. And the other part is like I can build into my automation certain exceptions. Like there's one guy who lives in lot 33, and I'm naming his number because he's no matter what, he sends his money order out on the 4th. Like clockwork, he's been there 35 years. He sends it on the 4th, but he's mailing it to Texas. So I don't get it. So when we send our notices, he's late. Like 8 months in a row, I'd put a notice on his door and he'd call me screaming. And eventually I'm like, okay, I got to come up with a system here. So for that one, I've kind of automated the exceptions, which is really what I found to be valuable. Like it's not hard. Like most of the softwares will just out of the box do what you need. But like that one, it says, here's our rent roll. Okay, so and so has not paid. That automation knows that. It looks at our text communication and it just uses AI to say, based on the text communication, has this guy sent a proof that his payment? Because I've told him, like, you just got to text me a picture when you send it, whatever. Like, I hate to say that. Like, most of the times I insist on them following my systems, but do it long enough, you'll find out there's some people it's not worth the fight. So it looks at that and says, yeah, he sent a text on the 4th. It was an image. It's like, okay, well, then it marks him as paid for now. And like that's the part that I think is the automations and AI combined is powerful because it's not hard at all to automate things when things go well. It's when the humans get involved that you have to kind of make these weird exceptions. And so that's part of it. Um, Another one is our financials. So every day I have one that basically looks at our profit and loss, budget versus actual, and just tries to make sure things are on track. Now, in the first part of the year, it's pretty annoying. It texts me every day because there's a lot of fluctuation. But I'm what I'm working on now is basically it's looking back 12 months. But for me, that the idea there is like, and I want a CFO, like a fractional CFO, who looks at things every day, because when I had one, they look at it quarterly, like, well, thanks for telling me, like I had a bad quarter. It's too late to do anything about it now. For this one, it's looking at, it's pretty simple. QuickBooks will send you, you can set up on QuickBooks to have, reports emailed to you. That email comes through as a PDF, and you can set up an automation that takes the PDF, analyzes it with AI. It has a very specific prompt per property of what it should be looking for, and it knows certain things. Like it knows, hey, a certain expense that's labeled as this is actually a distribution. It knows this, and it can see where things are going and track it on a daily basis. Now, is it as good as a human CFO? No, but can it do 90% as good every single day for a hundredth of the price? Yes. And that's kind of the automations I've liked to set up where for the most part they don't save us time. They really just make sure things are happening. And like in that one, if there is a problem, it's off track. It puts 15 minutes on my calendar to just look into it and dig into the issue, which is helpful. Like it's like, okay, why is this spike? Oh, we just paid our accountant. Okay, well, I just need to adjust the budget next month. So it's like, whatever it is. So those are the kind of stuff that to me, I think with AI and automations, the way it is today, I have no plans to hire anybody else in my company ever. To me, the more I've learned, I'm not tech savvy really with this stuff at all. I just talk to it like a human and I'm finding more and more ways to automate. And my goal is I think we could manage like as much as 5,000 lots with one person, just
Wow.
overseeing the systems who has a very, very good personal, like it would be an expensive person, be someone who really understands automations and is really good with people. But that's the only two things they would do. Everything else would get automated. That's the hope.
Wow. That's interesting. And super last question connected to this one. With all this automation in place and all this stuff, do you feel like also the value of the property is going up as far not only that you're obviously saving money, so you have a better NOI, but also because you have those automation in place, is driving so the value of the property up.
I
We're
think
not there yet.
I think so if somebody were to keep my system. And I'll give you a perfect example. Like people like to think that mom and pops are bad at everything, but they're not. They're just they're not good at some things. They're way better than most operators, including myself, at other things. Like they know that the guy Mike at lot 11 will just do the roads because he's retired and he just finds it fun, which is a true story on one of my parks. Like, and what we have now is like it would be if I were to make an SOP with each little park and like all the onesie twosie things, like it would never be usable because, and I tried it because people aren't going to read 30 pages to figure out the answer to this. But what we have is basically a custom AI that's built to just you tell it the problem. So there's one for each property. So if you tell it, hey, this park has potholes, well, it knows, send this email to Mike. He'll go out there with his tractor. If he needs gravel, he'll buy it and send you the bill, and he'll just fix it. Like that's a $3,000 repair probably to get somebody. Maybe not that much, but like if you're going to do heavy road work, it's not cheap, and he'll just do it. Like, and the only way I know that is because I sat down with the owner when I bought it, and I took notes on all the little things that people do here and there. And I think with this automation, there's the ability to take the good parts of mom and pops and continue to make it like to run each property so specifically that you can do that to where if I bring somebody in, they don't have to have 10 years of experience running this property and they know how to do it lean. They just have to know, like, hey, here's the maintenance request, which is automated at this point. Here's who does this at that property. Here's kind of the arrangement for what you can do, how you pay them, what you need to do, where they're going to get this from. All that's kind of baked into the automation. So ours is like a big tree where if somebody calls us and leaves a voicemail, it's all transcribed and it says, was that a maintenance request? Was that not a maintenance request? And that runs it runs hundreds of automations a month. And most of the time it's just saying this was not a maintenance request. If it was, it goes to this big automation, which is a tree. It says, who is this? What's their phone number? What park are they at? Okay, they're at this park. So what's the issue they have? Okay, at this park, who would deal with that issue? And basically, what it comes down to is the lady who works for me just gets a Slack message that says, hey, so and so needs this problem, do this XYZ. And so, a park at a time, I've built in like how to make it super lean by getting people who will not charge us much and do these things or do a good job and be consistent. And I don't have to teach that to her. Because when I tried to do that before, it just turned into, the person working for me called me with every single question and I couldn't answer them all. I was like, if you're going to call me with every single question, I might as well just do it myself. And so it's kind of a good solution for that.
Wow, that's super cool. A lot of interesting things, especially in the AI in systems. Hey Jeff, I took so much of your time. So
No worries.
thank you again, guys. If you have some type of deal that you guys want to send to Jeff, I'm gonna leave the email down below. Any deals, any JV, wholesaler, sellers, broker, you guys are welcome to send us deal. Let's make some money together. And thank you again, Jeff. Thank you for your service when you were in service, and thank you for being here with me.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff. Talk to you
Awesome.
later.
See ya.
Bye.